There can be no victory. The darkness always returns. Legends tell that these words were spoken by Sigmar, the first emperor. Some believe he had a vision of what was to come. But Sigmar uttered truth, not prophecy. The darkness always returns. Always. When the Skaven conquered Ubersreich, the flame of defiance guttered. The Reichland should have been lost, but heroes arose, and the Vermintide was repelled. Desperate for revenge, the Ratmen struck a pact with the barbarians of the Chaos Wastes, the worshippers of the Dark Gods. Once again, the Reichland stands upon the brink. Once again, heroes are needed. And yet, in the very hour of victory, the saviors of Ubersreich were taken, seized by the treacherous foe. With every dawn, hope fades. After all, if the greatest can fall into darkness, what chance can there be for those who remain?
Blimey. The antlers.
Vermintide 2 is a game by Fat Shark in association with Games Workshop and is an end times adventure. It is like in the classic vein of games like Left 4 Dead, where you're team action, going up against zombies, shooting them up, and trying to survive, only it flips the genre on its head and makes it more fantasy, with swords, warhammers, axes, and whatnot, and instead of zombies, you are going up against things that would make Grimbeard proud. Giant rats they call Skaven. It's full of crazy science and magic that is Lovecraftian, that takes you to these post-apocalyptic fantastical worlds. In the same vein of H.P. Lovecraft, I might also add, where it's almost cosmic horror. So if that sounds like something fun and interesting to you, then stick around, because today we're going to be covering Vermintide 2, a Warhammer game. Not to be confused with Warhammer 40k, oh no no no. This is its fantastical cousin, here on Lord Pod Gaming. Hey everybody, I'm Lord Pog and this is Lord Pog Gaming, and welcome y'all. Before we get started, I'd like to just remind you to like, share, and subscribe if you don't mind. If I got you feeling a certain kind of way with just that intro, I'd really appreciate it, and if after the video you decide this sucks, well, you can always unlike, unshare, and unsubscribe. Well, yeah, I don't know if you can unshare it, but you can always unsubscribe, so that's something, I guess. But yeah, let's get started. Vermintide 2 is a game that was released in March 8th of 2018. It is free currently on PlayStation Plus, where I've been playing it, but you can buy it on Steam for $30, I do believe. I'm sure they also have it on Xbox, so if you are an Xbox player, look it up because it's definitely worth it. I don't know if it's free on there though, so you may not be wanting to spend that much money. As stated before, it is in the same vein of classic games like Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, where you're running around shooting up zombies and trying to survive, but instead of guns and zombies, you are dealing with swords, axes, warhammers, things of that nature. There are ranged weapons though, which are pretty neat. They have like flintlock pistols and Gatling guns and things of that nature. It is a weird mixture of science and magic. And instead of zombies, you're fighting against these, well, these Chaos Warriors might as well be zombies, and giant rats they call Skaven. Or Skaven. I'm not entirely sure. Warhammer fans out there are probably really familiar with this form of the Warhammer universe. It is not Warhammer 40k, and I don't know if they share continuity or not. Let me know in the comments section down below, and just call me an idiot for not doing the research that was required to know this. It is co-op, but if you don't have any friends to play with, and I know that sounds really sad, and I don't mean it to sound sad. If you don't have any friends to play with, look me up. I'll play. If you got a PlayStation, I'll play some Vermintide with you. Hit me up in the comments section. I'll play. I got no problem doing that. I think it's only up to 4 players, though. There might be more, but I think it's only up to 4 players. The premise of this story is there is this Chaos Warrior and his little Skaven henchman by the name of Rasknit. They are wrecking the land. And since this is Vermintide 2, I'm assuming that your characters from this game are the heroes of the first game. And the game starts off by stating that you've been captured. So that's basically what you're doing in the very beginning. That's your tutorial. You're just learning how to play the game while escaping. Out of the 4 playable characters, there is Bardin the dwarf, Carillion the elf, Sienna the fire mage, Kruber he's basically like a musketeer or a knight. Think like a knight and a musketeer mix, you know. And my personal favorite, the witch hunter Saltspire. Let me start by saying I think Saltspire is just the best. He is so staunch in his attitude. It's hilarious. While playing in the 2-player campaign with my brother Android, he'll play Gruber and I'll play Saltspire. And while we're at our base of operations in between missions, every once in a while, Saltspire and Gruber will just initiate conversation between the two of them. It's like filler. And Gruber will mention something about where Saltspire is from and where he grew up, and I guess there's some kind of stigma on it or something. I don't always hear the full conversation because I'm usually talking in voice chat, but I always catch it when Gruber is saying something and Saltspire just goes, "What's that? I'm sure I misheard you."
Alright, I'm ready to go. I'm sure I misheard you. See, I've not applied the wisdom. Jeez. I'm such a dick.
It's just his voice all together. What's that? It's so great. I just love it. He tells the dwarf Bardin, "Patience, Master Dwarf," and it's just outstanding. Like, it's just such a great character. And let's talk about these characters real fast. Each of the 4 playable characters come with 4 unlockable classes, not including your base class. The 3rd or 4th class is only unlockable through a DLC, so you have to buy it. But the other 2 classes you can unlock through your base class by leveling it up, and at certain levels it unlocks that new class. Each class comes with basically feats. Think Dungeons and Dragons, right? Each class has class abilities that only pertain to them, and each unlockable class has its own set of feats. They call them talents, and we'll get into those more in a little bit. But it's important to understand that you are not penalized between switching between classes at all. You get to try them out, and you can switch back and forth at no cost to you whatsoever. So I think that's actually a really neat feature. For the sake of the single player game that I when I'm playing by myself, I play Bardin the Dwarf. I don't play Saltspire. I only play Saltspire when I'm playing multiplayer with a friend like my brother Android. I think that's important because as you're playing with a friend and you guys are playing through the game together, I think it's cool to have genuine reaction in unlocking each other's characters and getting to talk about it and this and that, as opposed to playing that same character in single player, playing ahead and then just being like, bourgeois about it, I guess you could say. No, it's better to switch between the two. That, and it gives you a little bit of variety, and you get to see like play different characters and stuff, and we all know variety is the spice of life, so there you have it. So out of all the playable characters, we're going to talk mostly about Bardin and Saltspire, since those are the two I have the most knowledge of. I have some knowledge of Kruber, but that's mainly because of watching Android play him, and all I can tell you about Kruber is that he's the tank. Which brings up an interesting point about Bardin. If you play Bardin thinking, hey, he's a dwarf, he's gonna tank, you're in for a rough surprise. Well, at least at the start anyways. I've been calling him classes, but really what they're called is careers. And his first career, he's a ranger veteran, I think is what they're called. And that basically means you are not tanking. Not really. Think of it this way. If Kruber is the lead guitarist in a band, Bardin is more of his rhythm guitarist. It is better to play him more like a short Aragorn than it is to play him like he's Boromir. Which is fine if once you get the hang of that, because he is actually a really good shot. Because of his height in the game, there's not a lot of aiming required. He's probably the best to fire from the hip for, I reckon, since he's already at gut level anyways. Once you pull out your rifle or your crossbow, you start off with a crossbow, but I switched him over to a rifle just because I think that's cool. And the Skaven, even though they're about the same height as Bardin, even when you pull out, Nope. Even when you fire from the hip, you're pretty much at eye level with them anyways, and so it's just shooting, tooting, rooting, and all that good stuff. Now, at like I said about the careers, I was calling them classes, but they're actually called careers. There are different levels that, like, you will unlock eventually that will, change things for you. At level 12, you unlock the Slayer, and anybody who knows anything about Warhammer know that the Slayer is more of an attack character. So you can change Bard into more of the tank eventually, but in the beginning you're playing the Ranger. You're not in the nitty-gritty of it. You're playing more backup, especially if you've got the sword and hammer set up like I do. Sword, hammer, and rifle. Pog's addendum here. I kept saying sword, hammer, and rifle. It's hammer, rifle, and shield. So I'm an idiot, and I don't know how much I've made this mistake, but I'm just now catching it, so I'm inserting it in here, right here. Sorry about that. Because once those hordes start coming at you, and I tell you, they will come at you. You'll take care of one horde in the front, start moving forward, and then all of a sudden hear a whole grip of something attacking you in the flank. You'll turn around and there'll just be another horde attacking you in the back. I'll tell you this right now. Bardin shines defending a flank, especially if you've got that hammer and shield. I sit back there, and even in single player, I sit back there just by myself handling entire hordes mostly. Killian does a really good job at helping, because she can get in between both Kruber and Bardin and just fire off arrows like it's absolutely nothing. I guess you could say Killian would probably be your drummer, if you will, with Saltspire being your vocalist, and I guess that just leaves the bassist, who is the fire mage, whose name escapes me now, Sienna. So it is a good band of characters, but for some weird reason, when you're playing, since there's only 4 players, it automatically defaults to just Saltspire, Kruber, Bardin, and Killian. And I think that's the elf's name, Killian. I've been calling her Killian, so if I'm wrong, well, we're stuck with it now. We're just gonna roll. It doesn't give you Sienna. I think you have to play Sienna in order to put her in the group, and I have yet to play her. I just don't do the whole magic user thing much these days. But with that said, I do like Bardin. I think he's tough. I haven't unlocked any of his other careers yet, so I don't know how well they play. But as a ranger, it is interesting to be playing a ranger and a dwarf at the same time. That is a neat little aspect to the Warhammer universe that I just kind of adore in a weird sort of way. I kind of like just being this dwarf who's better at ranged attacking right now than he is at at just getting in there with the nitty gritty, but if he has to, he can get in there and get down and dirty in the foxholes. So that's pretty cool, you know? I do like that. So while playing Saltspire, we're going to go into a little bit more of the details on how this game works. Since while playing him, I delve into the careers and all the mechanics a little bit more than what I do with Barden. You start off as a witch hunter with Saltspire, but eventually you can become a zealot. That's like his last career unless you buy the DLC. You get gear as you go along, like different kinds of weapons and ranged weapons, along with trinkets and necklaces and rings and things that increase your hero power. Think light level on Destiny. You can eventually get to a certain point to where you're more worried about your loadout and how each weapon feels than your actual hero power, but I don't suggest that till you're in the like upper 200s. Your weapons can be upgraded by taking old weapons that you don't use and then breaking them down, and then using the raw materials to upgrade the weapons that you've got. Again, this is useful. It doesn't raise your power level of the weapon, but it does add extra bonuses to them. On top of being able to upgrade your weaponry, each career comes with its own set of what they call talents, or feats, if you're so inclined to how D&D works. Talents are pretty cool. They're like special abilities that each character and career offers. You get them as you level up your character. Meaning not necessarily your career, but just your character in general. Each career has its own unique set of talents, and what's really neat about this is the fact that the talents aren't ever locked in, which I think is pretty cool. So no matter what talent you get, and whatever talent you choose at whatever level, you're not just pigeonholed into always using that same talent. You can play around and mismatch them and see how they all work out and how, according to your gameplay. And, you know, if you're playing with somebody, you may want to think about what kind of talent loadout you have. Because if you're playing with one person who has this play style, you may choose your talents according to that. While as playing with another person, they may have a different play style, and you may go in there and change your talents around to better fit their play style. I like how you're never really penalized for the talents that you choose. Another feature that Vermintide 2 offers is cosmetics, or what they call illusions. These do not raise your power level or your hero level at all, but it just makes you look really cool, and you buy them at the shop from the shopkeeper with a in-game currency called shillings. You start off with a healthy amount of shillings just to begin with, but you can earn more by accomplishing in-game objectives. It's just a neat little thing that they do. That way your equipment, depending on your loadout, can always look the same and the character can really feel like your own. The illusions also apply to the garb that you're wearing, because you really can't upgrade your garb or your outfit, but you can apply illusions to them to make your character look a little bit more unique in your eyes. The only way to gain the equipment that you need to raise your hero power is from chests, which are basically just loot boxes. You can acquire these chests in one of two ways: by accomplishing objectives in mission and accomplishing side objectives in the same manner that you gain shillings. A neat aspect about your equipment is that sometimes they come with illusions already attached to them, and when you salvage these items for raw materials to raise your equipment's abilities, you also gain those illusions, so you don't always have to spend your hard-earned shillings at the vendor. So with all that in mind, it's really just a matter of how you want to play after knowing all this. There are several different kind of combinations you can put together to create your perfect hero, with each of them having a large variety of different kinds of weaponry that they can use. Because I am personally more experienced with Saltspire, and let's do something real quick here. Let's just see how many more times I can say in all these sentences, or like, or just whatever, you know, like I'd see I'm doing it because I am more efficient with Saltspire or more familiar with him. I've got two go-to loadouts that I like to do. I like the dual pistols best. And I'm kind of particular on the unbalanced rapier just because you get a pistol with that weapon loadout too that doesn't count against your ranged weapon. So you're getting a free ranged shot. But he's also got this claymore that's just completely filthy. When it comes to him, you've got to decide on whether or not you like finesse more with the rapier or power with the claymore. And that is an important thing to think about because Saltspire can be kind of weak against some of these enemies, mainly the Chaos Warriors who will come at you with heavy armor and shields and things of that nature. So it is a matter of a combination of blocking and then pushing, taking the enemy off balance so you can strike them in their weak points. However, if you're using the Claymore, you're a little bit more powerful. While on missions too, there are supplies you can gather, like medical supplies, 3 different kinds of potions. I personally like to use the speed potion just because Saltspire isn't exactly swift, but he's faster than Barden. There are 2 kinds of bombs you can get as well. One is just your regular, like, bomb. You just throw it, light it, and throw it. And the other is an incendiary bomb, which I prefer that as well. There is also a variety of enemies that you can face off against, both in the Skaven and the Chaos Warrior ranks. They are special enemies like Gatling gun wielding Skaven who just light you up. I find them and the ones that they have these RPGs that just shoot like poison bombs at you. And these others that have green flame flamethrowers. Those 3, especially on the Skaven side, I find to be the most dangerous just because they can wreck you from a distance. On the Chaos Warrior side, they're pretty basic. They're just really just armored Chaos Warriors or warriors with shields. You know, they call them elites and whatnot. There is a type of Chaos Warrior, though, who's just armored up to the gills, and he's pretty tough to bring down. So again, that's why I kind of prefer the Claymore when using Saltspire. But I can take him down with the Rapier. It's just a little bit harder, and like I said before, it is a matter of knowing how to block and then parry and take him off his guard so it exposes weak points in his defenses. In summation, yeah, Vermintide 2 is a pretty fun and addicting game. When Android and I were playing it one night, we stayed up playing it till the wee hours of the morning, and he had work that day. But just to show how addictive it was, he left me this text. So yeah, pretty addicting. I like it, and I highly suggest it to anybody else who might be interested in it. And if you watch this video and decide you want to play it and try it out, go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of it. But until then, I really do appreciate everyone for listening to this and watching it and just stopping on by. I am so blessed by all my subscribers, and for those of you out there who aren't subscribed, give me a like, share, and subscribe if I got you feeling that type of way. I would be really blessed by that as well. Thank you all so much, and we'll catch you on the next one. Y'all come back now, you hear?